Hello guys, and welcome. It is ThatSrb2DUDE here today, bringing you yet another Splatoon 2 video. Today we've got some news, as patch 5.2 is now on the horizon and will be releasing on the 20th of April. Now, we do have the patch notes for this right now. It's not currently translated in English, but I'm going to do my best to translate it from Japanese to you guys to tell you guys what it means and what's going to be happening with a particular weapon. I'll give my comments for some relevant things where if I feel like it's a really big nerf or buff. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with the 52 gal, now the weapon is easier to paint under your feet than it was before. Now, honestly, I feel like this should be something that's standard for all weapons, not for just specific weapons. And I wish that, you know, we would have some sort of buff for all weapons that is the same as this one. So for the splat roller, the spread of the splash has widened a little bit. So I assume that means with your vertical flick and horizontal flick, it doesn't really matter. I guess it spreads a little bit more ink or something like that, or maybe its killing range is a little bit better. Guess that's a little bit nice to make rollers a little bit more consistent. For the flingser roller, the time between a vertical flick has been reduced by about 3 frames, which is of course really nice for flingser rollers, makes it a little bit faster for your vertical flicks, and I know for sure that's something a few people have been asking for. So for the tri-slosher, the time in between sloshes has been reduced between 2 frames. I assume that means the tri-slosher is slightly faster when you slosh with it. Might be quite nice, I'm not really too sure. For the heavy splatling, there has been reduced left and right shake while shooting on the ground by about 6%, and I assume, translated from Japanese to English, that is talking about its accuracy when you're on the ground. So I'm assuming what this means is that the bullets are more likely to go towards the middle of the reticule when shooting on the ground. For the splat dualies, the pain of the droplets dropped by the bullet has been made slightly larger, so I believe this is some of a painting buff for the splat dualies. For the gluga dualies, there has been reduced ink consumption by shooting by about 7%, so the gluga dualies are 7% more ink efficient. For the squiffer, the time after a charge has been reduced by 1 frame, meaning if you have done a full charge shot or any sort of charge shot, the squiffer will shoot 1 frame faster. This also applies to the splat charger and Elita 4K, except with these 2 weapons, the time after a charge release has been reduced by 2 frames, meaning technically you can shoot a little bit faster after you have made your first charge. For the scope variants of these 2 weapons also, the paint line has been narrowed when you full charge to the width of an unscoped charger. And this applies both to the splatter scope and the 4K scope, meaning technically they used to paint a little bit better than the unscoped variants, but now they paint the exact same. For the ballpoint splatling, the velocity shot speed has been decreased by 4% when you are shooting in long range mode, and also the range has been shortened by 4% in that ranged mode. They have also reduced the movement speed by about 10% while charging and shooting while you're in the short ranged mode. So basically what this is saying is that the ballpoint splatling has been nerfed quite a bit with its range and how fast the bullets actually travel through the air when you are shooting with it, which is fairly interesting. Personally, from how I see it, I feel like the weapon's still going to be fairly strong, but people just won't be able to shoot as far as they did before, and they're probably going to be a little bit slower than they used to be. So I think it's an interesting nerf. I feel like it's the type of nerf where it doesn't completely kill the ballpoint overall, but we'll have to just see what happens when the patch comes out. For the tent umbrella, they have increased the time to recharge a shield by 40 frames of a second, and they have also increased the ink consumption by 10%. Now when I look at that, that's actually pretty hard of a nerf, but I can understand some parts of it. Increased time for recharging a shield by 40 frames, I think that's pretty fair, since when you used to use Tent Umbrella, you would recover the shield fairly quickly, and even times where you would recharge the shield around the same time as it breaks. So at times it might feel like you would always have the shield. But what this is doing is that it's giving players a little bit more of an opening to actually take out a Tent Umbrella when it is vulnerable. It's over half a second more time that you guys get to have that opportunity to take a Tent Umbrella out, but I think overall that's a pretty fair nerf. Now, the one I don't really feel like is too fair is the increased ink consumption by 10%. I mean, I think that's a little hard. Maybe really good ThatSrb2DUDE players may be able to adapt to that. But personally, for me, I almost feel like I need to put some sort of ink saver main on this weapon, just so that I won't feel too much affected if I was to use this weapon again. Just by these two nerfs, I feel like the weapon's going to be a little bit more slower because you're going to have to be a little bit more cautious to when you have to recharge your shield, and then you're going to also have to take more time to actually recover your ink tank when pushing with your shield at the same time. So interesting nerf there. And that's pretty much everything for the main weapons. We're moving on to the one sub-weapon, which is Toxic Mist. I believe what this means is that the effects of Toxic Mist now affect a baller. So I'm assuming that if a baller was to run into Toxic Mist, it'll probably be slowed down by quite a bit, which is, you know, pretty interesting. It's something for the Toxic Mist. Moving on to specials. Speaking of, the baller has a range of buffs and nerfs, I believe. The first one being, baller now has increased time before explosion by 16 frames. So I'm assuming from the Japanese translation, I assume that means that when you are about to explode from a baller, it's going to take 16 frames longer. This one's a pretty interesting buff to all the lightweight weapons. I believe what this is saying is that now there's more acceleration for all the lightweight weapons if you are using a baller with it. So that would include the Ink Brush Nouveau, the Luna Blaster, the Aerospray PG, and the Sorella Undercover Brella. So I'm guessing that what that means is that you'll go to top speed a lot quicker with all these weapons if you were to use your baller with them, which is cool and all. But we have a nerf to the Explosher regarding this, because all the heavyweight weapons, which would include the custom Explosher, when using baller, the maximum speed of this has been reduced by 14%. So if you're to use an Explosher's baller, you can expect that the speed of this is going to be way slower in comparison to like an Ink Brush Nouveau or Luna Blaster. I can understand the point why they would do it, but again, I kind of question why. I already feel like the Explosher really needed that, or needed enough in that kind, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. Moving on to the next special, which is the Bubble Blower. The time until it disappears naturally has been extended by 2 seconds. So bubbles will be prolonged within the air for about 2 seconds. I think the original time was around 12 seconds, so now bubbles are going to last for 14 seconds, which is actually quite nice. But there's also more. The very first bubble and second bubble have also been reduced in size. So if you were to throw your first bubble while using a bubble blower, expect it to be really small. And then the second one that comes out, expect that to be slightly bigger than the first. And then I'm assuming that the very last one would be the same size as before. What this is basically nerfing is just that really, really quick insta-pop of bubbles that you would normally see coming out from like a Forged Photoshop Pro or a foil squeezer. Which I don't mind that being nerfed, because, not gonna lie, I've played a couple of games against it and it just feels, it's a very annoying occurrence when like you go right next to someone and they pop bubble and they insta-pop the bubble just extremely quick. Very interesting stuff, and I do support that nerf to Bubble Blower, and I feel like Bubble Blower will still be strong. I don't really know how big or how small those bubbles are going to be, but quite frankly, I am pretty okay with that. And moving ahead, we have got a couple of special changes to some weapons. We have the NZAP83 going from 180 ink to 170. The custom range blaster from 180 ink to 170. The L3 nozzle nose has gone from 210 to 220. The foil squeezer has gone from 180 to 190. And the ink brush with ink mine on baller has gone up from 160 to 180. So I can understand squeezer. The L3 nozzle nose, I'm not really too sure. I can understand the custom range blaster, but no one really ever uses it anyway. So, and I can understand the ink brush as well, since the weapon is fairly strong, but just not a lot of people really use it that much. But you know, for what it is, I feel like 180 is still pretty fair for an ink brush. And that is basically all the patch notes that we have received. Personally, I feel like there are a couple of things that they have been left out. I still have a couple of feelings where I feel they could have done a couple of things to Ink Armor or the Splatshot Jr. And I don't feel like they need to nerf the Splatshot Jr. super hard. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe give it a little bit slightly higher special point, like maybe just by 10 points or something, but I really wish that they would allow other weapons to be able to match it or be able to compete with the Splash Shot Jr., much like the H3 Nozzle Nose or the 96 Gal, because that sometimes when it comes to comp, it kind of feels like it's either, if you're wanting to go armor, you either go Junior or maybe ends up for other modes that aren't Splat Zones. So that's just kind of my opinions on it. I feel like it would be nice if players would feel more secure to be able to use other sorts of weapons like that also do have ink armor. Or maybe in general make ink armor just not as good as it is right now. Maybe just reduce 1 whole second from it. I have somewhat of a bias because I really don't like ink armor at all. I really don't like it when it's a thing where it's spammed over and over again, because it just makes it feel like if you use any sort of weapon, it's just going to take 6 or 7 shots to actually kill certain opponent. And it can just be quite annoying for some specific weapons that don't deal with ink armor too well. If anything, maybe they could reintroduce heavy depletion to some certain weapons in the game like they did in Splatoon 1. So like, let's say if a Splash Shot Jr. had died with full special in its tank, make it so that it takes a lot longer for it to actually build its special again if it was to be taken out in the first place. That's just an idea that I'm throwing out there. You guys are also free to think what you want. And of course there's some other things of, hey, give the Elite more range. I would love that. I'm still pushing for it. Like, funny enough, this isn't actually the very last patch, as they do say in this one. The next update data distribution will be made after observing the changes due to this adjustment and the overall status of the statistical data over a long period of time. So basically, they're not telling us when they're going to reintroduce another patch, but there will be another patch. It just won't be anytime soon right now, which is also good, and I do appreciate that. I really do hope that they look at things like ink armor and all that stuff. I really hope they look at things like main power-up just never being a thing to be able to reach up to 99.9 damage or anything like that. Those are just some of the things that I would like to see if we were to get another patch, or we're getting another one, but still, that's just what I want to see. And honestly, that's pretty much all I've got to say about this, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope some of you were happy with some of the things in here. I mean, personally, I have quite mixed feelings with it, but mainly because like some of the things that I wanted didn't actually get addressed. So it's kind of just a thing where it's just like, all right, we're moving on, and there's not going to be really much change to really anything, to be honest, other than ballpoint and Tenterbrella being a little bit harder to use and no bubble spam. So I'm pretty 50-50 on this, so it's okay. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Follow me on Twitter and Twitch, both in the description below. Do it for both if you're free and generous. Make sure to hit the bell notification button next to the subscription button if you'd like to be notified of whenever I upload a video. And also consider joining my public Discord, where you can go ahead and talk to myself and my Dude Society community. With all that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I shall see you guys in a future one.